Does the government work for us or do we work for the government? The federal government apparently avoided a shutdown this week because Republicans caved in and let it spend money that it doesn't have on programs that the Constitution doesn't authorize. Tonight, does anyone in Washington have principles anymore? You know the story by now. The post office is broke, Social Security is broke, Medicare is broke, Medicaid is broke, Amtrak is broke, FEMA is broke. Let's see. Who owns all these bankrupt entities? The federal government does. Newsflash! The federal government is broke. It is, of course, worse than broke because it operates on budgets that are 7 days or 45 days or 6 months in duration, and it borrows almost as much money as it collects in revenue. The latest bullet was dodged earlier this week when the Senate agreed to much of a budget bill that the House passed last week, but only for 45 days, not for the full 6 months that's in the House bill. Not to be outdone, the House will agree tomorrow only to the first 7 days of those 45 days. And it will do so by having that's right, two House members pretend that they are representing all 330 million Americans and cast a vote. All this will take place without debate, without amendments, without challenge, and most importantly, without authority under the Constitution. And all this is being done so that the bureaucrats have the authority to spend money in your name that the government doesn't have on programs that the Constitution doesn't permit. How does this happen, and why does it happen? It happens because the government has become Big Brother, not only by following us everywhere we go with our cell phones, but also by taking care of us. The government believes that if it takes care of us by giving away $1 trillion of your hard-earned tax dollars to other Americans, it's doing the right thing. The government calls these things entitlements. In fact, they are federal welfare programs that we have all become so accustomed to that we don't know how to live life without them. Dependence upon the federal government has been a goal of the feds since the time of FDR. He and his disciple LBJ brought about the New Deal and the Great Society welfare programs that are now choking us financially. And they did so with the hope that enough of us would be dependent upon them that we'd always vote for the candidates who would promise us the biggest piece of the pie. That was once just the Democrats, now many Republicans as well. I'm speaking, of course, of Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. They're not authorized in the Constitution. They all began as bare-bones safety nets. They now have lives of their own. Of the Republicans running for president, only Congressman Ron Paul and Governor Gary Johnson and Governor Rick Perry have called them unconstitutional. None of these candidates, the money folks have paid into the programs they won't get back, that would be theft. And none of them has said, as President Obama has suggested, that Republicans want folks to die in the streets. But all three of these candidates have questioned whether the Constitution empowers the federal government to force participation in these programs. It doesn't. The feds call Social Security a savings plan, yet they admit it pays back only 75 cents on the dollar. Who would use a bank that stole 25 cents of every dollar you deposited there? No one. So why do we let the feds do this to us? Why don't we take care of ourselves in our senior years with insurance policies and savings? Why don't the feds leave tax-free what we save for our senior years? Why do they force us to contribute to a losing and utterly bankrupt monstrosity? These are legitimate questions that the big government crowd in both parties does not want to address. And yet, when it comes to spending your money, de Tocqueville called it bribing the voters with their own tax dollars, there is little principle to go around. Even the small government Republicans, with a handful of exceptions, voted in favor of these silly 7-day and 45-day and 6-month budgets and permit all this involuntary wealth transfer to go unchallenged. Now we have reached the point where we can no longer afford this, and courageous candidates are willing to recognize that. What can we do? We can elect a president who will upset the status quo, not continue it. A president who will keep your money sound and the government off your backs. If we do that, things will change. If we don't, they won't. Tomorrow on Freedom Watch, another toe-to-toe match with Congressman Charlie Rangel on what is the proper role of the federal government in our lives. From New York, defending freedom every night of the week. So long, America.